joins us from Washington via Skype. James Norton, welcome to you. It's an impossible hypothetical question. Nonetheless, it's reasonable to assume many people will be asking today whether extreme vetting might have stopped this.
Well, I think, obviously, first of all, the hearts and prayers of everybody go out to, those affected in New York. And it's obviously another tragedy just, less than a month from the attack that we've seen with the Las Vegas shooting. So I think that it's very troubling right now here in the U.S. and just like you're experiencing over there in the U.K. in terms of these random attacks that are occurring, very simplified, just using nothing more than a vehicle or, a weapon of sorts, some type of knife. And so it's a very difficult thing to prevent. Obviously there's a lot of calls this morning for immigration reform, which I think, again, it's a little unfortunate that, people are still in the hospital, people have just passed away, and already we're in this political battle about, who did what on immigration, 20 years ago. And so I think it's really important for politicians to take a step back and really kind of take stock of what happened and what is really reasonable of what we could possibly fix, going forward in terms of these type of attacks occurring here, but also in Europe.
Yeah. For all you're saying that it's a difficult time, a sensitive time to engaging in political discussions, inevitably it will happen, it does happen, and you can argue the urgency necessitates it rather than waiting a week or two. The issue is so relevant now. Uzbekistan, not a nation listed on the Trump travel ban, so there are some people saying, for all the rigour of that controversial travel ban, it wouldn't have worked in this particular instance.
No, I don't think it would have. And I think that, the real issue is that, we haven't had immigration reform in this country since 1986. The immigration system is, largely a mess. And, we've worked on security quite a bit in the last 15 years since 9/11, but we really haven't addressed immigration reform. George Bush tried mightily in 2007. There were some efforts in 2013. I think the Trump administration, again, is more on the security focus, and they really have not engaged in a serious discussion in terms of immigration reform outside of repealing DACA just last month with Attorney General Sessions. And so, I think the Trump administration, for some bravado here, is in terms of actually engaging with Congress, actually putting forward, legitimate legislation and proposals to reform the actual immigration system that we have. And so we haven't really seen that yet. There were some principles that were put out essentially in the middle of the night on a Sunday night, which isn't a serious way of engaging, Congress and other stakeholders. If you're really going to have a big announcement, if you're really going to take it seriously, you need to do something like that, pretty closely, aligned during the week, something in the Rose Garden or on the Capitol or something like that. So we haven't really seen a serious discussion at this point.
No, and who knows what may yet follow. It may yet come. James, how, if at all, does what happened yesterday in New York feed into the Second Amendment debate? You mentioned the attack in Las Vegas. There were those who forcefully argue for their rights under the Second Amendment, who saw that, as you can understand, as a setback for their case, if you like, amidst the bloody carnage that happened there. Presumably there will be organisations like the National Rifle Association saying, look, this is an attack, somebody with a vehicle, this is a reminder of why people need to be armed.
This is a very diverse country, and there's very different geographies here, and there's different histories and different preferences in terms of, what one might see as a gun law in New York City, they might see very differently in Montana, or they might see differently in Texas than they would in, Los Angeles, California. So I think, even following the Las Vegas attacks, there was some discussion about, are we going to see some type of gun reform or legislation that would occur following that? And I think it just shows how difficult it is and how diverse this country is and how different it is in terms of the different laws. There are state laws, certainly, but not necessarily a federal fix. The Brady bill being probably the biggest, which really designated background checks for gun owners, and that was about 15 years ago when that bill passed. And so I think there are a lot of laws in the books. It is a diverse country. I think, this attack didn't necessarily have guns. He had a paintball gun and I think a pellet gun is what's been reported at this point. And so, certainly I think it's always going to be a discussion. It's always going to be something that is going to be looked at when we have these type of attacks. I think we don't necessarily know when something like that might occur. I think that there seemed to be some agreement on the actual ammunition in terms of repealing what was used in the Las Vegas attack. So you might see different things that are approached on the Hill that could be used in terms of legislating some type of fix on guns if there is that type of agreement. But it's a very difficult thing to do on all parties, and it's not necessarily a Republican-Democrat issue.